All right, hello. Melissa here, going live, talking about my divorce and understanding abuse within relationships and all the things that I have learned within the past couple of years, and especially having been going to therapy pretty much the whole time that I got married. So I thought it was proper when I was going live a lot. I was drinking out of my mug, and this is a mug that my ex-husband got me for Christmas last year, and it was one of my favorite Christmas gifts ever, and I absolutely love it. So I was a little bit late, and that is because I was making my hot chocolate, and it took a while to whip the cream. But I definitely wanted some whipped cream on my chocolate. So here we go. It's like all whipped cream. Where's the chocolate? Okay, so one, to answer some questions, I mean, I've kind of already have answered this before, but there's a lot of people who just don't understand why I would want to talk about this. And that's because within society, we don't talk about this. We tend to keep everything quiet, buried in the family, secretive, and that, to me, perpetuates more of these cycles happening. When we begin to talk about things and share things that happen within relationships, within partnerships, within families, we are better able to stop the cycles that happen within the families, especially ones that are traumatic, abusive, etc. I certainly was raised in a way where you keep quiet. And oh, good, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Kimber. I see people watching. Hello. Thank you. I try, I see hello, Raven. I see Raven. Sometimes I get a little distracted if I read or check the comments. So, I try to stay on my one track mind, but hello, everybody. Say hello. Hello, Sarah. Sarah Coons and my sister Sarah. Actually, both Sarahs are my sister. Sarah Salaci is my biological sister, and Sarah Coons is my sister from boarding school. We spent a couple of years together living there. Kimber, hello. It's been so long since we've chatted. Absolutely amazing. Callie, I see you out there. You've been so supportive of me wanting to talk about this. Thank you so much. And Raven, you're always supporting me, and it's just amazing and wonderful. So, as I was saying, we tend to keep things buried and secretive because we're afraid maybe of judgment. We don't want to let people know, possibly how bad things are. And we tend to just keep things secret and on, the down low, but that's not really productive and helpful, as humans, as we grow and evolve. I have come to a space in my life where the more I talk about things, the more I express myself, the more I uncover what has been buried deep within me, the better my life becomes. So additionally, I was very public with my relationship with my ex-husband. And of course, God has an amazing sense of humor. So my ex-husband was named David. My current boyfriend is named David. And the boyfriend before that was named David. So it's a little funny, but and maybe it's because my affirmations always have the name David in it. So it's quite funny that many of the affirmations I had in the past couple of years that included the name David are now true within this relationship. So anyway, the relationship I had with my ex-husband was I was very open at the beginning, and we had a magical romance. And there's there's a lot to that in a way. There's this thing called trauma bonding, okay? And this is where two people who come from similar traumatic backgrounds find each other, and they share a connection deeper than they have with anyone else because they have experienced such similar things. And I don't certainly trauma bonding, it can be negative in a way, but I think it can also be positive in a way. Like, for instance, having gone to the boarding school, I am more bonded with people who have gone through that experience with me than not. I don't, and maybe I'm not fully describing trauma bonding correctly, but I will say that it was so magical when my ex-husband and I met and got together, and the conversation, we had a 2-hour conversation in my office. That's where we first met. And we had very similar stories, although they were kind of different. We both had stepmothers who were abusive. And interestingly enough, he had his stepmother was Black and mine was Asian, but raised by a Black family. There's definitely similarities within that. His father took him from his mother in terms of custody, and our father took us in terms of custody. We were kind of taken away from our mother in a sense. And we were also kind of isolated. So as he grew up, he was not involved with his other siblings that his mother had. And then he also had some step siblings, and he was kind of isolated from them. He was kicked out when he was younger, around like his teenage years. He was kind of on his own for a minute. And I was also sent away at boarding school for a long time. So we kind of had this, kicked away from our family, kind of this isolation. We have this father who removed us from our mother by taking custody. And we both had stepmothers who were abusive towards us. And so we shared a lot of things that were very similar. And what that meant was we bonded very heavily over these shared experiences, especially having been traumatic experiences, because traumatic experience can leave such a big mark on us and, kind of determine who we are and what we become within our life. Now, when we met, I will say that I had done a lot of work on myself, and I thought I had done enough. I thought I had done a good amount of work, but I had yet to that point actually gone to a actual therapist. I had read a lot of books. I did a lot of personal development. I worked a lot on my mindset, shifting my mind from, thinking negative to, thinking positive. I did a lot of work on myself in terms of relationships with men and how I, dated and how I felt if a relationship ended. It used to be if a relationship ended or it didn't work out, that it would be very traumatic for me, that I would struggle. I didn't understand why this person didn't love me when I loved them so much. And I really shifted my mindset to understanding that if a relationship doesn't work out, it's not supposed to work out, and that's in my best interest. And so right before having met my ex-husband, I was in such a good space of knowing that I deserved, a high quality guy, someone who, loved me and cherished me, and that if relationships don't work out, it's okay. And that was mostly what I was experiencing within my life at that time. I would say that we are so conditioned and programmed to believe that our romantic relationships are the most important thing, and so much of my time and energy was focused on having a deep romantic relationship, that's where I put a lot of my work in terms of healing myself. And, so much of my problems were arising out of an attempt to have a relationship or to be with someone. And I was very happily single. Don't get me wrong. I spent years being single for a long time. Long time. As that might confuse some people why I went from one relationship to another. It's because I knew I'm finally ready. Like, I know I'm ready. And having met my ex-husband, it was confirmation that I was ready. But the thing is although I had done a whole lot of work on myself to shift my mindset in terms of understanding relationships, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. I did a lot of mindset work. I didn't do a lot of deep therapy work and also a lot of healing trauma. So once we got married, a lot of our trauma came out, and this is what relationships do. Eckhart Tolle says that your relationships are not to make you happy, they're to make you conscious. And what conscious means is so much of our life and our thinking is programmed to past memories, past circumstances, worry, doubt, and fear, that we're not really alive. We're not really living a conscious life of understanding what's happening actually in front of us. And we spend a lot of our time living in the past and living in worry and doubt that the past is going to happen again. And we're not truly consciously aware of what is actually happening within our world. And when you get into a relationship with someone and you experience problems and conflict, you can either go deeper into your pain and worry and doubt, or you can be conscious and realize that you're living off these past programs of fear and doubt and worry and trauma cycles. You can end up reliving a lot of your trauma cycles within your relationship. So in the same way that our parents, my ex-husband grew up with his parents fighting all the time. I grew up with my parents fighting all the time. And this was something that ended up happening between my ex-husband and I, was that we would have conflict all the time. And we're just reliving and basically acting out the same scenarios that we saw growing up to each other. Now, I will say that we had somewhat of a better awareness. We knew that we had trauma. We knew that we had healing to do. And I began going to therapy because I had a very traumatic episode happen in February. So we got married in November, and then that following February, I experienced a lot of trauma came up for me quickly after being married. And I experienced an episode in which I lost all touch with reality. I believed I was in a video game. There was a lot going on. There's multiple stories as to all of this. But what it led to me was going to therapy, and that I was consistently going to therapy every single week. And I have not stopped. About a year ago, I started doing every other week instead of every week, but same therapist the entire time. And we just had therapy yesterday, and he said the changes in my life are immense between who I was when he met me versus who I am today. And he's very, proud, and like he can see the work that I'm doing and the evidence of the work that I'm doing. And I'm very grateful for that. My ex-husband chose not to do any sort of therapy or anything. He believed that he could, work on himself and do it himself, which was pretty much what I had done for the years prior leading up to therapy. And I did do a good amount of work within myself, but I didn't realize how deep some of these wounds and these things were. And it was through the relationship that I discovered these things that I had within me, a lot of programs and conditioning in place. And I do want to, so when we met, it was very magical. I shared our relationship very openly with everybody. We were engaged within 3 days of meeting. That trauma bond was very, very strong. I felt very tied to him, very deep connections. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have as much anxiety. So it was the being with him was a very calming presence initially. And there's a few different reasons for that, but we were so good at reflecting back. When you love someone, and when you have a lack of self-love and someone is loving you back, it's like for the first time you're seeing qualities and things about yourself that you didn't see before. And him and I were so deeply committed to each other that I could see things about myself that I didn't recognize or honor before. And I'm very grateful that I had that deep love from him to be able to see things about myself. I am a completely different person from meeting him to today. And so much of that is because of his influence. When you look at my appearance, I was still trying to fit in, trying to be, pleasing to other people, instead of just doing what I wanted. And now I just do what I want. I do crazy hair. I do rainbows. I do lots of blingy gold. And that wouldn't have happened without his influence of encouraging me to just do whatever it is that I wanted to do. Additionally, he was he's an entrepreneur. He only ever worked for himself. He never really had like a job. And being able to see him pull that off and live and like not be stuck in this corporate world and safety paycheck and all this allowed me to begin my own insurance exam queen business. And he was super supportive of me going to therapy and encouraging me in that journey. And all of those things were so important to making the changes of who I am today and loving myself, for who I am today. But I didn't have nearly as much love for myself at the beginning of a relationship. I thought I did. I really did. And I did have more self-love for myself than I had ever had before. But he was reflecting back to me things about myself that I never really captured before. And it allowed me to open myself up to having more self-love for myself. And it was through this relationship that, I got a text from the, anyway, it was through this relationship that I was able to more deeply tap into loving myself at such a deeper level and living for me and what I want and not living for other people. Because at the end of the day, there's this very powerful video that I posted on my timeline not too long ago. And it was like a long explanation of like, sorry, I got another text. It interrupts me when I teach that. I'm going to take a sip. What was I saying? Hang on, it'll come back. Self-love. Okay, so I definitely thought I had a lot more self-love for myself than I had. But it was through the relationship with my ex-husband that allowed me to have way more self-love for myself and live the life that I want to live, look how I want to look. Talking about the video. Okay, so a while ago I shared on my timeline a video of a guy talking about at your funeral, all the things that will happen and how after your funeral, things will go on, things will happen, and eventually life moves on. And, what mattered about your life. And it's like, you need to live for you, not other people. You need to live your life for you, not other people. That was the main point of his video. And it was phenomenal. I would encourage everyone to go back and watch it. And I can go back and reshare it. And it was through my second marriage that I began to learn this, that I need to be living for me and what I want. And my ex-husband was very good at this himself. He, no matter what, is like, I'm going to do music. It's what I want to do. It's my passion. And being able to see him commit to something so deeply and so profoundly, despite any obstacle in his way, was powerful for me. And knowing that I can, do that for myself. Additionally, again, reflecting back, the love for myself, being able to see him the way that he loved me allowed me to love me at such a deeper level. In our relationship, it was the first time that like someone was encouraging me to do what I wanted to do. And so much of within my family, I take care of everyone. So, my sister has kids. I was with her all the time. Family needs anything, I'm flying across the country. I'm taking care of people. And I wasn't investing or spending a lot of time on what I wanted or, what I wanted to do in my life. And it was after, when COVID first came out and I was living with my sister for a few months and I was like, I'm, investing a lot of time into her family. I'm investing a lot of time into her children, which I love. Oh my gosh. I love being Auntie Liz. This is the most amazing thing ever. But I wasn't investing into myself, and I decided that's what I was going to do. It was invest in myself. So I decided to go back to my apartment in Vegas, which I never stayed at ever, because I was always with family or always traveling for work. And I made the decision that I'm going to begin living for me. I had all these plans to I had this tent that I was going to go explore places around Las Vegas. At that time, I had a job that required me to live in Nevada. And so I wanted to explore Nevada, find the best place to live because I could live anywhere within Nevada. Las Vegas was just the place we chose because it was where the office already was. So I was like, I'm going to go out in the world. I'm going to explore. I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to go camping. I'm going to do this. I'm going to live my life for me, truly. And then I met David shortly after that, David, my ex-husband. And that seemed like, oh my gosh, like an answer to what I was saying, that I wanted to invest in my own family, into my own life, into my own relationships. And here, boom, this man shows up and we're ready to go. And again, I still see it as magical. And our relationship was in perfect alignment of who I was at that time. And I got exactly what I wanted for who I was at that time. So I don't regret our relationship. I don't think I shouldn't have done it. I wouldn't change anything about it. And you can't, right? It's what happens. If being who I am now, would I have that relationship? No. Who I was then that relationship was perfect for who I was then. Because one of the things that I really wanted was an epic, amazing relationship. But who I was internally was not a person who was prepared for an epic and amazing relationship. Because what I learned through therapy, and this is what I want to say in terms of, when I titled this, talking about my divorce, understanding abuse within relationship, I want to be very clear that the abuse that I'm talking about wasn't necessarily between him and I, but the abuse that I have within my own self. So as a child growing up, I had a father who has a lot of mental illnesses, and he will say that he has a lot of mental illnesses. And one of the things there's many things about how we were raised, but a big significant thing about our childhood was that our father needed to be happy. And if he wasn't happy, there was a lot of tension, there was a lot of screaming, there was a lot of yelling, there was a lot of turmoil. And so I, as a child, would try to do what I could to keep my father as happy as I could, as best I could. In my teenage years, it got a little wonky because we got the stepmom came in and there's lots of kids. But I was one of the children that my father would talk to a lot about his problems. So this is, I think it's called parentification, not quite parentification in a way, but I think that's more like when you have your child become a parent to the other children. So like my older sister, she was parentified. She was my mother a lot of the times. And that's still within our relationship. She although she is my sister, I respond to her like a mother. Like if she tells me to do something, I do it. Like it's just how it is. So she was parentified very, very early on because my parents divorced early on. And I remember having to see her be in charge of us and her get in trouble if we messed up. So I wasn't parentified like that, but I was parentified in the way that he would talk to me. He would tell me about his like, even, oh my God, it's so hard to even want to say these things, but he would talk to me about his sex life with my stepmother and what was going on. He would tell me about their emotional fights and their problems, even when he sent me away to boarding school. So I remember I was sent to boarding school because of some issues that happened with in my high school years, and I was not doing very well, and I was struggling each day, and my parents didn't know what to do with me. I didn't know what to do with me. And so they sent me to a boarding school that was supposed to be, this Christian place, work with horses, therapy, healing. It was none of those things. It was basically just a labor camp for children, and where people can get their knocks off of beating children. But when he came to visit me for one of my first visits, so I was at this boarding school for like months, and maybe even a year at this point. I didn't get many visits. I never got to go home. He came up for a visit, and we talked, and like the whole conversation was him telling me all the problems that he had since I had been gone and what's going on with my stepmom and all of these things. And I had to become the parent to him. I remember there was long conversations when he was going through a divorce with my mother where he would tell me all the things about my mom and rely on me to support him. Basically, I had to be a therapist for my dad as a young child. Even as early as like 8 years old, I can remember him coming to me with these deep problems and these emotional issues and telling me about them and wanting to receive comfort from me. So I am a child, a daughter, a woman who is raised with the expectation that I need to take on the burdens and the problems that a man is experiencing and love on them and give them back love and support. And that is who I was when I attracted my second husband into my life. I was, and that's the abusive part. So I was perpetuating the abuse that my father put onto me. You should not be using your children as a therapist. They should not be someone that you're talking to about your deep emotional things and your sex life and all this stuff. That's not appropriate to put upon a child and to rely on your child to comfort you in those times. You need a therapist for that or some, not your children. But that's how I was raised and certainly raised that keeping the man happy is most important. And if he's not happy, then life is awful. So the abuse that I was living within my second marriage was the abuse within myself to put myself in a position of constantly being his therapist and wanting to see him happy and okay and like catering to any emotional stuff that was going on despite how I was feeling, that I suppress everything I'm feeling. I suppress everything that my emotional stuff, and I focus solely on helping him feel good and helping him feel better and taking care of him and pushing down all the things to take care of myself. And it was by going through therapy that I began to learn this about myself, that I was attracted to the cycle of what I grew up in. A man who needs therapy and expects it from his partner, from like, that's who I was. And so I perfectly attracted a man who wanted that as well. And that was, my ex-husband. He didn't want to go to therapy, but he did want to tell me all of his emotional problems and receive comfort from me. But he was incapable of receiving any of my, emotional stuff. He was at first, but then over time, there was just too much among the both of us. And he was super supportive in so many ways. I don't mean to say anything negative or bad about him. I'm just trying to, explain this from, my perspective and what I was seeing. There was a time when I realized through the boarding school that some of the memories and some of the things that I suppressed was that my house mother there was basically a pedophile. She would watch me undress and she would watch me get dressed and undressed. She would have me put my bra on a certain way. She would make me lift my boobs and put them in my bra a certain way. She would watch me go to the bathroom. She would watch me wipe my butt. She would watch me shower. She was in control of me all the time. And really realizing the deep level of what she was doing to me and my mind and my body and my spirit, like that didn't really unpack for me until my relationship with my ex-husband. And he was so supportive of me at that time, and he encouraged me to go to Montana and testify against the boarding school in the Montana Senate. You can watch the video. It's out there in the Montana history of recordings. Nothing came of it because in Montana they get to do whatever they want. But he was so supportive during all that, and so much came out. When that all came out for me, a lot of his stuff came out. And that's where we got into a problem, was because he, again, was wanting to not go to therapy, but to use me as his therapist. And there were many times where I said, this is a conversation you need to have in therapy, not with me. I love you. I want to support you. I want to be there with you, but I cannot handle these emotional things. Why I also have my emotional things. I'm going to therapy, and that's where my emotional and my trauma stuff is going. But all your emotional trauma stuff is coming on to me. And that's just not fair. I can't handle all of this. And I had to be the emotionally strong one for both of us. And that was a lot. But that was who I was raised to be. And that is why I attracted a man who did that and who wanted that. It was in perfect alignment. Perfect alignment. It couldn't have been better in terms of who I was. But what happened was as I was going to therapy and as I was learning that I, was basically the therapist for my father, and that I now was attracting men who wanted me to be their therapist and now had married one, I began to do what I needed to do to take care of myself. Now, at this time, there was so much trauma between me and him, that he was not going to therapy to help himself. He wanted to do it himself and in his own mind. But again, that's like, you can't take advice from someone you don't want to trade places with. Like, I learned that I can't take my own advice, because my own advice is get with a man who needs therapy and love him and help him and heal him and it'll be good. Like, that was who I was programmed to be. So I can't trust myself, right? There's a point where you have to realize you can't trust your own thought process, because your own thought process is drenched in traumatic experiences and abuse and all of this stuff. So I was like, okay, I need to trust a therapist. I need to trust someone else. I need to go outside of my own head to learn what is going on. And that's where I learned a lot about like the drama triangle, that there's, I'm not the best at like, understanding the words and all these things, but there's like when you experience trauma and you see someone else going through trauma, you want to rescue them. And so you become like the rescuer, but then you rescue them, or you try to rescue them, but then like something, it's a whole drama triangle, but I realized that I'm like trying to rescue people, but then when it doesn't work or it's not good enough, then you become like the perpetrator. And then it's just this toxic freaking cycle that just repeats itself over and over again. The drama triangle. I don't know the official word for it. But I realized that that's what was happening within my relationship, is that we were trying to rescue each other, but then it wouldn't work because we're not qualified to take care of that for each other. And we're not getting additional help. I tried many times to ask him to go to therapy, to come to therapy with me, to read books together, to do something together to help us. And he just wasn't into it. So eventually, through our relationship, and I would say that for quite a while, I did try, and try, I tried to fix him, or I tried to fix us. And it was me trying to like share like how I felt. But I quickly learned that like he was incapable of handling how I felt without taking it very personal. Like, for instance, when we were scheduled to go to a trip in Colorado, and I believe I had already talked about this. We were scheduled to go to a trip in Colorado. So this would have been like 2 to 3 months after I started therapy. I started therapy in February. This trip was scheduled for March. He was supposed to come with me, and at the last minute he said, I don't want to. I have too much anxiety. And this was when he really started like not ever wanting to leave the house, staying in his studio all the time. And we were really almost living separate lives, like pretty much just roommates. Now, I would enjoy and cherish every opportunity when we did get to hang out, and that's the pictures that you saw. Like, to me, what I focus on grows. So I always tried to focus on the good stuff. I tried to focus on the happiness. I tried to focus on the moments where it was pleasant, and that is what I did post on Facebook. My posts were not fake. Like, what we experienced was not fake, but, I'm not going to post about a fight that we had related to, our traumatic experiences. I did sometimes. But anyway, he really began to live, in his studio all the time. And so when I was, really excited that we could go on this trip, that we could leave the house, that we could go do something together outside of the house, and last minute he decided he didn't want to go. So I go by myself. I'm out there for a week. I have a good time. But I also am missing him, because I did want a relationship with someone who would go on adventures with me, who would leave the house with me, who would want to do things together. And I had called him, or he had called me, I forget, and I was expressing to him that I miss you. I wish you were here. Now what he heard was, you're an asshole for not coming on this trip with me and you're ruining my life. That's not what I was saying. What I was saying was, I miss you. I wish you were here. But it wasn't in a guilty way. I was simply trying to express my sadness and how I felt and my longing for him. But he interpreted it as, he's the bad guy, he's awful, and he's ruining, my life. But those were not the words I said at all. But when we are living in our traumatic minds and our abusive past, we mistranslate things constantly. I would say like 80% of our conversations, we were having two separate conversations because he was reliving his trauma and I was reliving mine. And we were on completely different wavelengths, but at the same time, we're experiencing the same thing. It's very freaking weird. But when you begin to learn trauma and you understand it, when you're in a conflict, when you're in a fight like that, we're not even there. That's the whole thing about relationships are not to make you happy. They're to make you conscious. When you're in those moments of conflict, you got to realize, like, he's not even talking to me. I'm not even talking to him. Like, I'm talking to my dad. I'm yelling and screaming at my dad. Like, I'm trying to get my voice out, because as a child, I couldn't say, stop telling me your emotional shit. Stop telling me about your sex life with my stepmother. Stop telling me this stuff. I'm not here. I'm not supposed to be that for you. I'm not supposed to be a therapist for you for that. But I couldn't tell that to my father as a young kid. But as an adult, I'm trying now to express my voice, and I'm doing it towards my partner, whom I'm attracted because he is what I was aligned with, which was finding a man who needed a therapist, because that's how I was programmed and raised and conditioned to be. But for the first time, I'm trying to express myself in it. But anyway, during that conversation, and it was an awful, awful conversation because he just couldn't understand that I'm allowed to feel sad that he's not there. And that's okay. Like, I can feel sad that he's not there, but that doesn't mean that I get it. I understood anxiety. I understood not wanting to leave the house. I get it. And there was no pressure on me to get him to come. I didn't threaten him to come with me. I didn't say you should have come with me. None of those things. I allowed him to just do what he needed to do. But I wanted to be able to express my sadness and have him say, honey, I know that you're sad and I'm so sorry. And we're going to work on this and we will have trips together. Like, that's what I wanted to hear in that moment. Not, well, you think I caused you all this problem and you don't understand my anxiety. And you don't know that. Like, it was an awful conversation. I couldn't sleep that night. It was so horrible, the conversation that we ended up having. And the next day, I've got 12 hours I've got to drive back. I barely slept for like 2 to 3 hours. I'm in this emotional wreck because all the things that he was saying, like, he's so angry at me and he's so mad at me and I just miss him. He couldn't understand that I'm simply expressing that I miss you and I wanted to hang out with you and that I'm allowed to be sad that you are not here with me, but I am not upset with you that you're not here with me. I'm simply sad that you're not here with me. And he couldn't hold any of that emotion for me. Very similar to like my father. I would have to take on all of his emotional stuff, but I wasn't allowed to have feelings of my own. And so I'm learning how to have a voice for myself for this first time to be able to express, well, how I feel. I feel sad that you are not here. That doesn't mean fuck you for not being here. That's not what it means. It just means I'm sad. And he couldn't hold the space for that. So then the next morning, as I'm driving with very little sleep, he's still angry and upset. And he basically says, I'm leaving. He's like, I'm ending this relationship and I will be gone before you even get back. And I'm not yet strong in myself. I'm only beginning to go to therapy and uncover this stuff. So this man who I am madly in love with, who I missed, who I wanted to be on this trip, says he's leaving and our relationship is over. I freak out and I'm like, oh my God, like I had like no sleep and I'm trying to drive back. I've got 12 hours to go in the mountains of Colorado. And I said something like, I said, please don't leave before I get back. Please don't leave before I get back. Just be home when I get home. If you need to leave the next day, fine, but just don't leave now. And he was like, why? And I was like, I don't even want to say. because the thoughts that are in my mind, and I was raised with a man who would threaten suicide all the time. My father, all the time. I might as well kill myself. You guys don't appreciate anything. He would even do things. There was one time he was like passed out, like half dead on the floor. I don't know if he was faking. I don't know if it was real, but we had to call the cops. We had to do all these things. Like, this is, again, is perpetuating the trauma, perpetuating the cycle. And so this is what came out of me. And I didn't want to say it. It was a thought. It was a feeling off of lack of sleep, off of all these emotions running high. This man that I love is saying he's leaving me. And so the first thing that wants to come out of my mind is, well, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself. Like, I didn't say that. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to feel that. And I was doing my freaking best at the time with no sleep and high anxiety and stress. And all I said was, I don't want to say it. Just please be home when I come home. And my sister's in there right now. She's saying he said he was going to kill himself all the time. We were just raised around that. This man who's raising us would threaten suicide if we didn't cater to him or help him feel happy or be his therapist. And this is who I am, attracting a man in my life to be that for me, to relive that cycle in a way to make it better. And it's through therapy that I learned all this stuff and was able to get out of that cycle. So anyway, for him, for my husband, my ex-husband, that was a very traumatic thing for him about what I said. And he held on to it for a very long time. And he emphasized how much I need to talk about in therapy. And I was like, I am. I talk about it in therapy every day. And it's not how I feel. It's not how I want to feel. It's not how I truly think. But in that traumatic moment, running off of no sleep and you threatening to leave, like, that's what came out of my mouth. Half came out of my mouth because I couldn't even get myself to say it. I just felt it. But feelings are not necessarily who you are. It's just what's feeling through you. And having been raised so many times at the threat of suicide by my father, of course that would be something that would come to mind when I am, when a person is saying they're going to leave me. Well, if you leave me, I might as well just die. Like, that was just a thought that was right there. And I tried as hard as I could to fight against it. But the whole point of that conversation was I wanted to tell him I was sad. And he couldn't handle it. He could not handle it. He could not handle that I was sad that he was gone. And he turned it on to himself that I was saying he was awful for not coming and that I'm ruining his life and that he's not doing all the things I need to do. And that was one of the turning points for us, because I basically was finding myself on a fetal position on the floor, crying my eyes out over the thought of someone leaving me. And I'm like, I will never be this disempowered again. And that's when I started going heavy into therapy and wanting to be strong in myself and loving myself enough that no one else could knock me down like that. That no one else could be like, well, I'm leaving you, so... And then I'll be like, I'm ruined, I'm over, life is over, I might as well die. I never want to be in that point ever again. And so that was a very big turning point for us in our relationship. And for him, it made him go deeper into a hole. And for me, it made me go harder into therapy. And I stopped trying to tell him my needs. I stopped trying to get him to fulfill my needs. I stopped trying to have a relationship with him that I thought my marriage would look like. And I began focusing on myself. And I literally came with the motto in therapy, and my therapist approved this, I'm living like I'm single. We're in a marriage together. I understand that he has trauma, just like I do. I understand that he's got a lot to deal with. He's got a lot to unpack, just like I do. And I can't push him or force him to do it the way I'm doing it, such as going to therapy, reading books, listening to YouTube, Abraham Hicks, Eckhart Tolle, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I was fully invested into wanting to be different, feeling different. But he chose isolation and staying in his studio 24/7. And we didn't go to bed together. We didn't wake up together. We were on completely different schedules half the time. If I saw him, it was when we had dinner or lunch. If I made him food all day long. And that's when we got to hang out. Every once in a while, he would take me out, to like his places, the bar he liked to go to in Vegas. And that was it. And I was like, and so then I had to take myself out. I had to take myself for walks. I had to take myself out hiking. I had to do all the things that I had planned to do within my relationship by myself, for myself. And so I just started doing that. And this is where a lot of the separation began to happen. Was I was on a path of, I will not be dictated by my trauma anymore. I will not continue this programming in this cycle of me being to be a therapist to my partner. And I'm going to take care of myself and love on myself and be better for myself. So while he chose to go deeper into his hole and stay in his studio, I was choosing to get out of my cycles and out of my patterns and going to therapy. And the separation began to just happen. Now, again, the abuse that I say, when I say my divorce and understanding abuse, the majority of the abuse was to myself. And it was through the relationship and through therapy that I realized that. And I was able to pull myself out of that. And I confirmed with my therapist yesterday. I said, I was such this programmed little girl seeking a man who would come to me with all of his problems and that I would help him to be happy. Is that I don't want to be that anymore. I don't want to have that. And he was like, you're not that. He's like, the changes that you have made within the past year are so significant. You are and 2 years, it's been 2 years now in the therapy, are so completely significant and different that you're no longer in alignment with that. And in my current relationship, I don't have that. He has therapy. He has his stuff. He has a support system. He gets out of the house. He has other people that he relies on. I'm not carrying an emotional weight and burden, and I'm not constantly trying to like appease him all the time. He doesn't need to be appeased. He's happy. He's a happy person. Not saying that he's perfect by any means. He's got a military background. That comes with all kinds of stuff. But he's got a whole support system with that. And it's not dependent upon me to keep him happy and pleasant. And in fact, what's so interesting within our relationship is how often he likes to see me happy and pleasant. Like, I've never experienced a relationship where the other person is like, I want to make sure that you are happy. And I want to do things that lead to your happiness. And how can I help you be happy? Like, I've always done that for another person, but to receive it back to myself has been crazy. That's been so cool. I'm now in alignment with a person who doesn't need his woman to be a therapist. I'm in an alignment with a person who wants his woman to be his partner and to see us both happy and satisfied and fulfilled. As opposed to just one of us being happy, satisfied, and fulfilled, and the other one of us carrying all the burden and all the weight of it. So, I feel like I've talked a lot. I don't know how long this has been. I feel like I got a lot of what I wanted to say off. And today I did, so part of the struggle, I've wanted to talk about this for a while. I've wanted to express myself, and I was. If you go back on my timeline a little bit, back in July, August, I was talking about my feelings and my emotions quite a bit. There was a night, in fact, where I was missing my ex-husband a lot, and I went live to talk about it and how I was thinking and how I was feeling. And one of the things that I realized was I hadn't had those feelings at all, really. Again, I had been living single for so long within our relationship that when he moved out and he left, it was okay, not really much a big change for me. That's why less cleaning and taking care of you, then now I could just do that for myself. I didn't really experience a lot of feelings of missing or longing him, but this one night I had. And so I began to reflect, like, where is this coming from? What's going on? And what it was, honestly, was I was around my nieces and nephews for the past month, and they love and adore me, and they worship me. Auntie Lissa this, Auntie Lissa is amazing, Auntie Lissa is the best. Hugs and kisses all day long. And then they left, they went back home. And then I had no one around to be like, we love you, Auntie Lissa, you're the best. Or no one filling my love cup. So then I was like, oh, well, you're just missing your love cup being filled. You've got to fill it yourself. So then I said, well, what do I miss? I miss when he would come up behind me and say something silly and hug me around the waist and we'd laugh and giggle. It was like, I'm going to do that to myself. I'm going to say something silly and I'm just going to myself. I literally did that while washing dishes. And that feeling of longing him or missing him dissipated because it simply was a lack of having my cup filled, my love cup filled, and I could fill my own love cup. And I did. And the longing and the sadness went away. And I went live to talk about that. Then when I met my current boyfriend, who I was calling my crush at the time, I went live on that. And at that point, my ex-husband, who had pretty much been radio silent with me, began trying to talk to me again. And he began threatening me that if I were to talk any more about my crush or to say anything, that he would just do all kinds of things. And he began sending me messages all day long, lots of threats, lots of different things. He started calling my family and saying stuff. Like, it was wild. And it made me shut down. And it made me scared to talk. And it made me think that I was doing something wrong. And that is why I have been so quiet for so long. And now, and then also he made threats that if I did continue to talk about my new boyfriend or anything at all about my past relationship, that he would do anything he could to stall and drag out the divorce or ask for alimony or all kinds of stuff, all these different threats. And I even went through the messages the other day because I needed to get the number for our past landlord. And he was like, I'm going to annoy you until this is done. Like, it was a lot of things. And it prevented me from wanting to talk and wanting to say things. And then I'm in this new relationship. And I'm like, well, I want to respect my new relationship and not go into my old relationship. But then I'm like, the desire to talk about this was so strong. And seeing how many, I've had at least 10 people watching the entire time. The comments I've seen are constant comments, constant affirmation. Even my sister, just recognizing and acknowledging all the stuff we went through our childhood. I know that what I'm saying is helping people. I know that what I'm saying is impacting people. And I know that what I'm saying needs to be heard by other people. And that other people want to hear from me and hear this story. And that longing and that calling kept getting louder and louder and louder. And I remember the day, like, one of the reasons why I've been feeling so sad and so depressed is not just the lack of sun, but knowing that I've been keeping myself silent and I've allowed other people to threaten me into staying silent. And I couldn't do it anymore. And I remember being on the phone with Christine Hayes, who's my amazing, wonderful life and business energy woo and do coach. And she's like, what do you want? I said, I want to talk about my divorce. And she said, do it. and that night I told my current boyfriend, I said, I know that, you had said before, like, we had one brief conversation where I said, I want to talk about this stuff. And he said, but why? And I just left it at that. I didn't get more into it because I still had this fear around my ex-husband saying something and being mean and just whatever. And I didn't want to deal with that. And so I just pushed it all down again. So when I expressed to my coach, Christine, that this is what I wanted, it came out. I didn't even think, it wasn't on my mind. But when we had done like this deep healing session together and when she's like, what do you want? I said, I want to talk about this stuff. And she's like, do it. So that night I talked with my current boyfriend. I said, I want to be able to talk about this. I was like, this is who you met. I went live immediately after our phone call to share how I felt about the phone call that I had with you, meeting you. I went live to talk about how I felt after our first meetup. Like, I love to express myself and talk about these things and share with other people these thoughts and these feelings and overcoming trauma and understanding the abuse that we have, especially within ourselves. And I was like, I just want to talk about these things, and it's just what I want to do. And then once I said I was going to do it, then it was like, okay, now you got to do it. And there's still this like lingeringness around it. And then it's like, well, when do I need to get a count? Do I need to write out an outline? Like, do I need to pick my topics? Like, and then I was just, I'm just going to do it. And enough people, were confirming that, one, they wanted to hear it. And then there was enough negative feedback in a way, like, well, why do you want to do that? And I'm always the rebel. So I'm like, if you say I shouldn't talk about it, I'm going to talk about it even harder. Especially not towards the threats. I was definitely like, worried about that. But today, actually, since I had my page is public, and my ex-husband has gone on my page, even though he's blocked. He has other different pages to where he can look at my stuff, and I know he's looking at my stuff because he'll say things, which is why he had made the threat against me not saying anything, and that he would make the divorce difficult and hard if I did say things. So I knew he's watching my stuff, but I want to be public. I don't want to shut down my Facebook. And so I knew that it was possible that he could see that I said I was going to talk about the divorce. So I went on today to see if he had said anything and to see if he was still angry or mad, because I think he cleared out many of his posts. I don't even want to talk about some of the deepest stuff. Like, that was hard. That's going to be a conversation for another day. But some of the things that he said were very mean. And I had to do a lot of, I'm grateful in a sense because it meant I got to do a lot of healing work around the things that he said. And I got to feel stronger from that. And I got to have an amazing RTT session with, Alina. She does rapid transformation therapy. And it allowed me to tap into a lot of pain that I was carrying, especially around myself as a woman with a woman's body and a woman's body part. And to really love myself and my body in a whole new way. And so I am grateful for that, but it hurt really, really badly, some of the stuff he had said. And, oh gosh, but, I don't harbor any animosity towards him. Like, I understand where a lot of his pain and frustration was coming from. I know that I wasn't perfect in our marriage at all. I know that I had so much trauma that was projected onto him. And I know that I hurt him so many different ways, and I will always be willing to apologize, for the pain that I've caused and what I have done. But today I went on to see, if he had said anything. And he actually had said, "I'm sorry, Melissa." And he's been doing so good at like taking care of himself. Like, one of the things, this was such a big part of what I was wanting him to do was, as when I was going through therapy, I was like, I've got to take care of myself. I've got to have a self-care routine. I got to love myself. I've got to do things for myself. I've got to, even if I don't want to, I've got to do it. And one of the things was that he didn't really care to take care of himself. He just wanted to be in his studio, and if I gave him food, he would eat. But if I wasn't there to make food, he wasn't eating. And he is now like making food for himself every day. He's going to the gym again, or at least working out or whatever. And, he made a reflection post, and he, said, he acknowledged that, we both have trauma, that we both have a lot of healing. And, he's taking the steps that I had begun taking for myself within our relationship. And, I don't think that we were meant for forever. I'm glad that our relationship is over. I'm glad that what we went through happened so that I can learn and uncover this about myself. When I get really reflective about who he is very much a rebellious version of all the things my father hated. Tattooed, rapper. He doesn't have the piercings, but he's got enough tattoos to make up for it. My dad said, never bring home a tattooed gangster thug, whatever. And so he was like a very physical representation of all the things that my dad hated, and yet he behaved so much like my father. And I realized that I was in perfect alignment with that, because that's who I still was, this little girl inside, this rebel against the things that my father hated, and yet at the same time wanting to be with a man who behaved like my father. And I believe that that's what our relationship was there for, was to expose the healing that we needed to do. And he even said that within his post, that our relationship made him look at things that he had been denying for a long time. And that he is now making the moves to take care of himself and to do the things. And I am all the love in the world to him. And I don't have any anger or animosity. I don't have regrets. I only see the growth. I only see the learning. And that is what everything in life is for, is growth and learning. If you're not learning, you're dead. If you're not growing, you're dead. Like, I don't hold myself to this standard of you have to have one relationship, and if it fails, then you're a failure. And, you know, your relationship is supposed to last forever. Like, I've seen people live, like my stepmom, both my ex-husband and I have this strong desire that our fathers would leave our stepmothers. And that's where a big part of our trauma bonding came in from, was having had this, you know, this abusive parental relationship, witnessing the screaming and the yelling all the time. And we both bonded over that. And I, for years, they're in this negative relationship. I believe his parents are still married, and my dad and stepmom divorced after, I don't know, 12, 15 years. I don't know numbers and times, but it was a very long time. I think I was 8 years old when they got together, and I was in my 20s by the time that they divorced. And they hated every day of their relationship. They fought every day of their relationship. They hated it. But they stayed into it because they read a Bible written by somebody who decided that it, you know, like, I'm not even going to get into it. Watch the movie Sea Beast on Netflix to understand how we are so convinced to follow one book, and that it was written by someone else who decided what they wanted us to believe, and we just perpetuate the cycle forever and ever. I don't believe God wants us to hate our marriage and live in it no matter what. We are not meant to be painful every day and to have hardships every day. So I don't live with those belief systems anymore. If a relationship is over, it's over. And that's okay. I would rather end a relationship that is painful and sad and traumatic than to keep it just for the sake of keeping it. I don't have that belief system anymore. I changed that belief system of mine. So I have nothing but gratitude that this relationship is over, that it is done, and that I got to learn and grow and heal, that I got to uncover the little abusive Melissa who wanted a man to appease and to be his therapist for, that I can give that up, that I no longer, you know, am tied to the identity of that little girl, that I can now be, you know, a woman who secures a partnership with a very healthy man who desires to see me happy as well, and not like in a, I will give up all of my happiness for your happiness. Like, that's not a healthy relationship. And that is how I was functioning before. I will give up all of my happiness for your happiness, because that was what was required of me as a daughter. And so that is what I was programmed and conditioned to do. All of my happiness means nothing if you can be happy. And that is where I think a lot of people struggle in relationships, because they're like, I am giving up all of my happiness for you, and yet you still don't love me back. Why can't you see how lovable you are? Because look how I'm willing to love you. I'm willing to give you everything and all of me and exclude anything that makes me happy just to keep you happy. Don't you see how lovable you are? And that I'm doing that for you? Like that. I'm done with that kind of energy. I want to be happy, and I want my partner to be happy, and I want us to be happy. I don't want to have to give up all of my happiness for his happiness and then hope that that's enough for him to want to be with me. Like, who would want to be with someone who gives up everything that makes them happy? Like, that's, So yeah, again, I would encourage everyone to watch the video I posted not too long ago of a guy talking about what happens after your funeral. And who you need to live for, you need to live for you. So I am living for myself. And myself is a person who wants to talk about all this stuff. And this won't be the last time that I get on and talk about my life and talk about my relationships and talk about abuse and talk about trauma. This is going to be something that is happening more and more often, more and more frequent. Because again, the desire within me is so strong. And the confirmations from people that what they hear from me is impacting and changing their life and helping them to be better and is helping them grow and is helping them overcome the abuse and the trauma that they've had. I'm going to scream to the mountaintops knowing that what I am saying is helping other people all day long. And it doesn't matter what threats I have. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about it. It doesn't matter if it annoys people that I talk so openly. If it bothers you, it's because you think you need to be quiet because someone else has convinced you to be quiet. And you have a belief system within yourself that thinks talking about things that are difficult or hard or involving someone else should be quiet and silent. That's a belief you carry. And not my belief. My belief, the more I talk, the more I share, the more I say things, the better I am helping myself and other people and the world in general. If we continue to bury things and suppress things, they will continue to fester. They will continue to cause problems. I don't ever want to perpetuate the cycle of living in a nasty, awful relationship to be the programming, the conditioning that I continue to live with and to pass that on to my children, my nieces, and my nephews. I don't want that to ever be something. And the more I talk about it, the more I expose it, the less the potential of that happening is going to be. When we keep things silent, when we keep things quiet, it allows it to continue. It allows it to keep going. And if this video is just for me so that I can remind myself not to be this little girl who caters to a man's feelings and emotions and suppresses anything that makes me happy to keep him happy, then that's what this video is for. Because I don't ever want to be that little girl again. And if I'm helping any other person who had experienced that and who is finding themselves to be that little girl operating within your current relationships, there's a way out. You don't have to be her anymore. You can love her and hug her and say, I am so sorry that you had to be your father's therapist. I am so sorry that you had to hear all of his deep emotional problems and his sex life stuff and that you had to keep him happy and appeased in order for you to have somewhat of an okay childhood, for you to have not even an okay childhood, but an okay day. You know, to keep him from yelling and screaming at you all if you had to listen to his emotional problems and cater to his needs and give him comfort. That's who I had to be in order to survive my childhood, but I don't have to be her anymore. So I get to hug her and love her and say, I'm so sorry you went through that. I'm so sorry, little Melissa, that you had to be a therapist for your father. I'm so sorry that you had to give up all of your own thoughts and your feelings to cater to this man who is your father. But we don't have to do that anymore. And you don't have to do that for any other man anymore. And you get to care about what you care about. And you get to do what you love to do. And your emotions matter. And your wants matter. And your needs matter. And your desires matter. And you don't have to throw it all away for someone else's needs and desires. Especially another man. Especially a man like your father, who's going to continue to suppress things that matter to you. You don't have to do that anymore. And if you find yourself in a relationship like that, bye. Get out. Go to therapy. Read a book. Get out of there. So anyway, thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and end this. I love you so much. This won't be the last time I'm coming to talk about this. I am going to go read all the comments now because I think my sister and Raven wrote essays up in there and I'm excited to see what they said. So I love you all. Have a fabulous evening.